And here in this issue of the people in the chains, Imam Ibn Hajar continues to say, فَإِن تَشَارَكَ الرَّاوِي وَمَا رَوَى عَنْهُ فِي السِّنِّ وَاللُّقِي. If the narrator and who narrates from him share in age and meeting the same sheikhs, they have similar age and they met the same sheikhs. So then what are they? They're peers. فَهُوَ الْأَقْرَانِ. But one of them narrates from the other. فَهُوَ الْأَقْرَانِ. Then that's the narration of a peer narrating from a peer. وَإِنْ رَوَى كُلٌّ مِّنْهُمَا عَنِ الْآخَرِ. And if each one of them narrated from the other, فَالْمُدَبَّجِ. Then that's called the mudabbaj, the case of mudabbaj narration. Mudabbaj means the cheeks, because the cheeks are symmetrical, yani like at the same level. So when each one is narrating from the other, then this is the narration or the case called mudabbaj. When one of them is narrating from the other, then this is the case of aqran. And our teachers do that, and our students do that. Yani, I narrate from my peers, for example. Some of my peers, they have something like, meaning we're like the same age and we took from the same sheikhs, and maybe he has something that I didn't take. So I'll read on him and then narrate from him. So that would be the narration of Aqran. And if we read on each other and then both narrated from each other, then that would be the case of Mudabbaj. وَإِنْ رَوَى عَمَّنْ دُونَهُ فَالْأَكَابِرُ عَنِ الْأَصَاغِرِ. And if the narrator narrates from someone below him, then that's the seniors narrating from the juniors. Once, for example, in some of our lessons, we talked about something. So then, and I looked into the issue and I got some information. And then I shared it with the sheikh who was teaching us. He's not my peer. I shared that information with the sheikh who was teaching us because he didn't have the information. So then I went and I looked into it. So he copied it from me, but I don't know if he ever narrated it to anyone, but he did copy it from me. So just to give you an idea only here. So if one narrates from who's lower than him, then that's the seniors narrating from the juniors. And by the way, the case of mudabbaj is a case of aqran. It's a case of narrating from peers. Every case of mudabbaj is a case of aqran, but not every case of aqran is a case of mudabbaj. Aqran is that a narrator narrates from his peer. Mudabbaj is that the peers are narrating from each other. And if one narrates from who's lower than him, then that's the seniors from the juniors. One of the scholars, he used to take from who's higher than him, and he used to take from his peers, and he used to take from those below him. So he was asked about that. So he said, it could be that this person, this one that I'm taking from, has a single word that would be my salvation in the afterlife. So that's the seniors from the juniors. وَمِنْهُ الْآبَاءُ عَنِ الْأَبْنَاءِ. And a case of that, a more specific case, is the fathers who narrate from the sons. The fathers from the sons. وَفِي عَكْسِهِ كَثْرَةٌ. And the reverse of that is abundant. The sons from the fathers, because that's usual. The father will teach his son, so the son will narrate from his father. وَمِنْهُ مَنْ رَوَى عَنْ أَبِيهِ عَنْ جَدِّهِ. And there's also the case of who narrated from his father, from his grandfather. Now, all these cases we're reading here, there's at least one very important thing you can take away from them, which is to show the thoroughness of those scholars of hadith. They covered all the scenarios. This hadith science is very real. It's not a show, it's not a facade. They wouldn't have gotten all these scenarios. They didn't just sit down and think about all these scenarios and then say, hey, let's say this one. Oh, what about this one? Oh, what about this one? No, these are real scenarios because they were really narrating by chain of narration, and they were really tracking who these narrators were, and they were really keeping track of their biographies and everything. To the extent that they sifted all these different scenarios. وَمِنْهُ مَنْ رَوَى عَنْ أَبِيهِ عَنْ جَدِّهِ. Amongst them is who narrated from his father, from his grandfather. وَإِنِ اشْتَرَكَ اثْنَانِ عَنْ شَيْخٍ وَتَقَدَّمَ مَوْتُ أَحَدِهِمَا. And if two shared in taking from a sheikh. So there's one sheikh and there's two students for this sheikh. That doesn't mean that they met each other, those two students, necessarily, but there are two students. If two shared a sheikh, and one of them died before the other, فَهُوَ السَّابِقُ وَاللَّاحِقُ. Then that's the case of السَّابِقُ وَاللَّاحِقُ. يعني the prior and the later, the earlier and the later, or something like that. Sabiq means who came before, the prior. And lahiq means who came later. I have here in my note an example. Ibn Hajar gave this example, but I just drew the table up here. Because if you want the knowledge to stick for you, it might be a good idea for you to draw tables, to make illustrations of some sort for yourself so that you can just take a photograph of that, a mental photograph of the picture, as opposed to memorizing the words word for word. That helps a lot. So I did that a lot. So here's an Imam, a hafiz of hadith. His name is As-Silafi. So someone took from him named Abu Ali, and someone else took from him named Abu al-Qasim. This Abu Ali died in the year 500, and this Abu al-Qasim died in the year 650. A 150-year gap between two people as far as their deaths, yani. A 150-year gap between the deaths of two people who took from the same sheikh. So the one who died in the year 500, he was the Sabiq, he was the prior one. And the one who died in the year 650, he was the Lahiq, the later one. وَإِنْ رَوَى عَنِ اثْنَيْنِ مُتَّفِقَيِ الْإِسْمِ. And if someone narrated from two who had the same name, so he has two sheikhs with the same name, وَلَمْ يَتَمَيَّزَا, and they were not differentiated. When he said, from Fulan, which Fulan is that? Is that Fulan ibn Fulan? Or is that Fulan ibn Fulain? Which Fulan is that? فباختصاصه بأحدهما يتبين المهمل. Then, if the narrator is special to one of them, then the other one who's not intended becomes clear which one it is and which one it isn't. Well, mashallah, I learned from a sheikh named Samir. I learned from another sheikh named Samir also. So if I said from Sheikh Samir, then it's probably known who is that one. But yani, so if it's known who is that one, then the other one, yani, if it's known who is that one because of, let's say, because of my association with one of them, then the other one also is known. The one who's not intended is known. وَإِنْ جَحَدَ مَرْوِيَهُ جَزْمًا رُدٍّ. And if the sheikh, the one to whom the narration is attributed, if he denies the narration definitively, then the narration is rejected. It means someone came to him and said, it was said that you narrated such and such, that you said such and such. And he says, that's a lie on me. Then this narration is rejected. أو احتمالا, or if it's possibly from him, like he says, I don't remember, قُبِلَ فِي الْأَصَحِّ, then it will be accepted according to what's most accurate. Yani, they differed. Some said, if the sheikh says when he's presented with something attributed to him, I don't remember narrating that. Some said, this is then rejected. And some said, it's still acceptable. And Imam Ibn Hajar said, that's most accurate saying, that it's still acceptable. وَفِيهِ مَنْ حَدَّثَ وَنَسِي. And in that subject are the hadiths, or in that subject is the subtopic of those who narrated and forgot that they narrated. مَنْ حَدَّثَ وَنَسِي. Those who narrated and forgot that they narrated. So someone says, I heard from Fulan. And then they go to Fulan and say, so-and-so says he narrated this from you. And then he says, I don't remember that. Then is this accepted or it's not accepted? It's taken to be accepted. And even some scholars, when that was brought to their attention, they said, I don't remember it. And then what would they do? They would narrate that. They would narrate that very hadith from the one who narrates it from them. They would say, from Fulan, who said that he narrated it from me. And then they would report it. Once, mashallah, Sheikh Samir came to me and he said to me, someone told me that you said such and such from me. He said to me, I don't remember that, but I told that one, take it. I'm paraphrasing though. He said, I told that one to take it. وإن اتفق الرواة في صيغ الأداء أو غيرها من الحالات. And if the narrators agree in the expressions of transmission or in some other circumstances, فهو المسلسل, it means فهو المسلسل, then that is the chain or the series. That's a series in the narration. So it could be as simple as all of the narrators saying an fulan, an means from fulan, from fulan, from fulan, from fulan. So that's tasalsul. That's a series. If all the narrators agree in some way, there's different scenarios of that, then that's called series. Maybe all the narrators stood up when they narrated the hadith. Maybe all the narrators narrated that hadith at the Kaaba, for example. Or maybe all of the narrators said, this is the first hadith that I heard from my sheikh. So when they agree like that successively in the chain, then that's a case called musalsal, the series. Wasiyagh al-ada, and the expressions of transmission are sami'tu, I heard, wa haddathani, and he told me, thumma akhbarani, then the next level is he informed me, wa qara'tu alayhi, and I read on him, or I read to him. That means I presented it to him and he listened to me as I gave it to him. That's how I took it from him. I took it from him by reading it to him. ثم قرئ عليه وأنا أسمع. Then it was read on him while I was listening, while I was hearing. So you're not doing the reading, nor are you the one being addressed, but you're there. So someone was reading on the sheikh, and the sheikh is verifying what's being read on him, and you're a third party there. So you took it too then, because you heard it. So then you can narrate it by saying, it was read on him while I was listening or while I was hearing. ثم أنبأني, then أنبأني, it means he informed me. So the translation then doesn't, because أخبرني means informed me. أنبأني means informed me. خبر means news. نبأ means also news. So this is mustalah hadith terminology. So they differentiate between أخبرني and أنبأني. ثم ناولني, and then there's he gave it to me. ناولني, he gave it to me. ثم شافهني, then there is شافهني. So the word شافهني means he told me verbally. He told me by his mouth, from the word shafa, which is the lip. Shafa has the lip. ثم كتب إلي, then he wrote to me. So one narrates what was written to him. He says, he wrote to me such and such. Let's say there's a chain in there. So he'd say, he wrote to me that he heard from so-and-so, from so-and-so, from so-and-so, etc. ثم عن, then there's merely from. وَنَحْوُهَا, and the likes of that, like he said. So just to say from so-and-so, from so-and-so, from so-and-so, or so-and-so said, so-and-so said, so-and-so said. فَالْأَوَّلَانِ لِمَنْ سَمِعَ وَحْدَهُ مِنْ لَفْظِ الشَّيْخِ. The first two, سَمِعْتُ, I heard, and حَدَّثَنِي, he told me. That's for the one who heard alone the expression of the sheikh. He heard himself alone the sheikh's expression. فَإِنْ جَمَعَ فَمَعَ غَيْرِهِ, and if this one says this with a plural expression, like he says, we heard, or he told us, then this means that someone else was with him, like he was in a lesson, a class, a session, a circle. وَأَوَّلُهَا أَصْرَحُهَا وَأَرْفَعُهَا فِي الْإِمْلَاءِ, and the first of them, سَمِعْتُ, I heard, is the most explicit of the terms of transmission and the highest in rank in dictation. وَالثَّالِثُ وَالرَّابِعُ لِمَنْ قَرَأَ بِنَفْسِهِ. And the third and the fourth is for who read alone. What's the third and the fourth? أخبرني, he informed me. وقرأت عليه, and I read on him. That's for who read alone, without someone else there. فإن جمع فكالخامس. And if one says that with a plural expression, then it's like the fifth. Which one is the fifth? قرئ عليه وأنا أسمع. It was read on him while I heard. So if he says, أخبرنا, he informed us. Or قرأنا عليه, we read on him. Then that's like قرئ عليه وأنا أسمع. It was read on him while I was listening. والإنباء بمعنى الإخبار. And then he says something that I just told you. إنباء, informing, has the meaning of إخبار, informing. إلا في عرف المتأخرين, except in the norm of the latter day scholars. فهو للإجازة كعن. Then إنباء will be for a license, permission. Having an Ijaazah. Like an. Ijaazah meaning having the permission to narrate, especially what one did not hear. You could have an Ijaazah and have hearing. And it's possible to have Ijaazah without hearing. It's possible to have hearing without an Ijaazah, but if you heard, then you're good. If you heard and you have Ijaazah, then that's very, very good. If you have Ijaazah, then that's okay. It works. Ka'an, like from. Because from an is also an expression for Ijaazah, according to al-mutaakhirin, the latter day scholars. وعنعنة المعاصر محمولة على السماع إلا من المدلس. And for a contemporary to say from so-and-so, so so-and-so means a contemporary of his. We say contemporary, so you can't be a contemporary by yourself. So if you're a contemporary, that means there's another one, two contemporaries. Each one is the contemporary of the other. They live at the same time. Mu'asir. So if a contemporary of someone says from so-and-so, yani from this contemporary of mine, so is that a connected chain by hearing or not? Mahmulatun ala sama', it is taken to be a case of hearing. Illa min al-mudallis, except from the trickster who manipulates the chain. And he gives you the impression that he heard something from someone he didn't hear it from. And when you study these things, that makes you sharper and more aware. Even someone recently told me he heard something. The way he said it, though, made me feel like, I don't know if he really heard it, though. Something funny about the way he said it. Maybe had I not learned this, that would have gone over me. I wouldn't have thought about it. Okay. وقيل يشترط ثبوت لقائهما ولو مرة. And it was said, it's a condition that their having met each other is confirmed at least once, yani even if only once. And that's the chosen position concerning a contemporary reporting by merely using the word from. So what we're saying here is, if he says from so and they're both contemporaries, and it's confirmed that they met at least once, then and he's not a trickster in his narration, then it is taken to be that he heard it. The scholars will count it as that he heard it. And some of them said it's just enough that they lived at the same time. Some said it's enough that they lived at the same time. If they lived at the same time and they're trustworthy, and one of them, this one contemporary who we're sure that he is really a contemporary. Saying he's a contemporary means they lived at the same time. So we're sure that they're contemporaries, and he's a trustworthy one. And he says, from so and so. Some said, we'll take this as that he heard it. That's Imam Muslim's condition. And it was said, no, that's not enough. It's a condition to be confirmed that they met each other actually, even if only once. That's Al-Bukhari's condition. وهو المختار, and that's the chosen position. وأطلقوا المشافهة في الإجازة المتلفظ بها. And they use the word mushafaha. So mushafaha by itself means he told me with his mouth. He said to me verbally, or he said to me from his own mouth, for example, because shafa is the lip. So mushafaha, they used mushafaha for an ijazah that was pronounced ijazah, like to say, I give you ijazah in this, ajaztuka fi kada. I give you an ijazah. وَالْمُكَاتَبَةَ فِي الْإِجَازَةِ الْمَكْتُوبِ بِهَا. And they used mukataba, he wrote to me, for the ijazah that's written. So in the writing, he permitted him. Ajazahu, he gave him permission in writing to narrate. Alhamdulillah, I got both of those in some cases. From one sheikh, I wanted an ijazah. He told me, come back and ask me later. So I came back later. I don't know how long later. And then I told him, I'm coming back for the ijazah that I sought from you. He said, ajaztuka fihi. I give you ijazah in it. And also, once I asked for ijazah. At the time, it wasn't given to me. Then later, years later, I repeated my request. And then I got a piece of paper and I opened it up, I unfolded it, and it had ijazah written there and what's included in that ijazah. واشترطوا في صحة المناولة اقترانها بالإذن بالرواية. And they made it a condition for the validity of having the narration handed over, having the narration physically handed over. They made it a condition that would be associated with the permission to narrate. So not just to get the book, just to Shaykh put the book in your hand doesn't mean now you can narrate from it. They said in this case of having the narration handed over, that it's a condition that it also be accompanied with permission to narrate. وهي أرفع أنواع الإجازة, and that is the highest type of Ijaazah, which is for the Shaykh to give you the authorized book and to verbally say along with that, I authorize you in this book. That's the highest level of Ijaazah. وَكَذَا اشْتَرَطُوا الْإِذْنَ فِي الْوِجَادَةِ, and likewise, they made it a condition to have permission to narrate concerning what was found, al-wijada, what was found. Meaning you found what was written in the Sheikh's handwriting, and you knew the handwriting. وَالْوَصِيَّةَ بِالْكِتَابِ. Okay. And also, they made it a condition to have permission to narrate when the record, the book or the record, the narration was left in a will. The narration was left in a will, or the book was left in a will, the record was left in a will. So now can you narrate? They said, if you have also with that permission to narrate. And also, wafil i'lam, the same case, when the sheikh informs about what he narrates. Meaning, a sheikh says, I narrate the book of such and such from so and so. So he informed. So that mere information, is that enough for you to narrate now? If you have permission to narrate, which is the Ijaazah. If you have the Ijaazah, then also yes. وَإِلَّا فَلَا عِبْرَةَ بِذَلِكَ, or else there's no regard given to such a report. كَالْإِجَازَةِ الْعَامَّةِ, like a general permission. According to this, the general permission has no regard. It means a scholar said in his book, anyone who finds this book has permission to narrate it, for example. So Ibn Hajar says this has no weight. Well, some scholars gave it weight, though, because they did it. We talk about big scholars of hadith, I'm not talking about just regular people. وللمجهول وللمعدوم على الأصح في جميع ذلك. And also, an ijazah for someone unknown and an ijazah for someone who doesn't exist, like he wasn't born yet, these have no regard according to what's most correct in all of these cases. ثم الرواة إن اتفقت أسماؤهم وأسماء آبائهم فصاعدا. Furthermore, the narrators, if their names and their fathers' names are the same, and even if you go further than that, their names, their fathers' names, their grandfathers' names are the same, واختلفت أشخاصهم, but they are different people, فهو المتفق والمفترق. So we're saying there's two people, they have the same name, and their fathers also have the same name, and their grandfathers might happen to have the same name, let's say, but they're different people. فهو المتفق والمفترق. Then this is the case called المتفق والمفترق. Muttafiq means agreeing, and muftariq means departing. Agreeing and departing. They agree in name and they depart in person. وإن اتفقت الأسماء خطا واختلفت نطقا. And if their names are written the same way, with the same shape of letters, just the shape, not the dots and the harakat, just the shape. If their names are written with the same shape, but they are pronounced differently because of having different dots or different vowels, فهو المؤتلف والمختلف. Then this is the case of المؤتلف والمختلف. Mu'talif means harmonious. Mukhtalif means conflicting. Harmonious and conflicting. وإن اتفقت الأسماء واختلفت الآباء أو بالعكس فهو المتشابه. And if the names agree, but the names of the fathers differ, or vice versa, فهو المتشابه, then that's the ambiguous case. We'll come to that, inshallah. وكذا إن وقع الاتفاق في الاسم واسم الأب والاختلاف في النسبة. And likewise, if the agreement is in the name of the narrator and the name of his father, but the attribution is different, like they come from different towns. So one is, let's say, Iraqi and one is Misri, but they have the same name and their fathers have the same name. Then that's also mutashabih. ويتركب منه ومما قبله أنواع. And then from that and from what's before it, there are types. Types are based on those. منها أن يحصل الاتفاق أو الاشتباه إلا في حرف أو حرفين. Such as for the agreement or the ambiguity to only be for there to be an agreement or an ambiguity except in one letter or two letters. أو بالتقديم والتأخير, or by reversal of names. أو نحو ذلك, or the likes of that. And that's the end there. Alhamdulillah. And we'll stop there. If there's no question, then سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.